This is Petabyte Reloaded, or PBR, as we call him. He is a 2022, 5.5-month-old boxer mix puppy. He's an absolute marvel of genetic engineering. Back in 1996, the first animal was cloned who was a sheep, and I'm sure that project cost millions, and now you can commission your own clone who costs just as much as a mid-sized sedan. This puppy's genetic code is living its second life, and in this video, we're going to see nature versus nurture and see who wins. So the previous Petabyte, I got at the pound when he was about 2 years old. And I wasn't planning on getting a dog, but I went there and he just sat there so calm, staring at me, wagging his tail, that I decided at that moment, this is my guy. So for the past 12 years, we were always together almost every day for 12 to 16 hours a day. He'd always come to work with me on Fridays, which is today, and then he'd go cube to cube, smiling and just wagging his tail, trying to get treats from everyone. Petabyte was about 12, 13 years old, maybe 14. He had a stroke and was acting very strange. He'd just stare at the wall and go into circles. So I knew it was about time. He was having seizures, so finally I had to take him to the vet and have him put down. But at that time, I decided I'm going to get the same dog again, and then I looked up how to do it. So during Petabyte's final days, I looked it up and there was 3 companies that do cloning. One's in Texas, one's in South Korea, and one's in China. And at that time, I emailed and talked to all 3 companies, but there was only one that was really responsive and willing to help me because I knew his final hours were coming. And they overnighted me a cell preservation kit. They said it's a lot easier to do if he's alive, but I knew that that wasn't going to happen. So I started looking around at veterinarians that would help me to preserve the body at certain temperatures and certain specifications that they wanted so that the cells would still be intact. I didn't trust any of the vets because they didn't know any of their temperatures to store dogs' bodies and wouldn't really help me. I contacted just about every veterinarian in Vegas and just decided I'm going to do it myself. So I had to keep the previous body in a room that was about 4 centigrade with appropriate temperature monitoring, which is perfect if you run a data center because you have all the tools to monitor temperatures. So I found an old refrigerator and I calibrated the things with some data control units that I use for monitoring, and I was able to keep the temperature until the cell preservation kit arrived. So after I got that cell preservation kit, I took a look at it and read the directions, and I realized I'm a little bit out of my element as I had to dissect some skin samples off of the body that was in my fridge. And so I called my doctor friend, and he was more than willing to help me. So he came over and we took some skin samples, a few, one behind the ear, one like right on his leg, and one on his back. And because he was already dead, you have to go a little deeper than if he was alive. This whole process is a lot easier if he's alive to clone a dog, and you can try again. Unfortunately, since he was dead and I did have to get rid of the body shortly, that I was only going to have one chance to do this. That's why I carefully calibrated everything. After his demise, my friend came over. We got the samples, cut them up, and sent the biopsies over to a lab to further investigate and make sure they were good cells. So I'm not a doctor and I'm not a geneticist, and I'm way out of my element when I'm talking about this. I'll talk about anything technical to the nth degree for computers, but this, bear with me. So the basic process seems like you get skin cells and you grow them to a fibroblast state. At that point, you take an egg from another dog that you're just going to use pretty much as a shell. You take out the nucleus, and then you take the fibroblast cell and put it inside the egg between the cell walls, the outer and inner wall, and then you shock it. And that'll cause mitosis. And at that point, I know there's a bunch of drugs you have to add and amino acids, and then that embryo will be created from that. At that point, you take the embryo and you insert it into a surrogate that has been prepped with like IVF drugs so that it can start to grow as a new puppy. And at that point, one of 3 things is going to happen. It's going to have either a miscarriage, nothing's going to happen, or you're going to have a new puppy in about 3 months. So at this point, I bet you're wondering about how the actual business process from the end user goes when you decide to become a client of a cloning company. Well, I sent the cells in and they sent me a report about how the cells work out, how many survived, what percentage it is, and the likelihood of something happening. They sent me a contract that details all the terms What if I want more petabytes? I could probably make an army of them. I decided on just the one. And so I paid half the price to start. This isn't something that's done a lot. They've only done, from what I can tell, at the company I use, probably a few hundred to a few thousand of them. And that means that this is a custom engagement. If you've ever bought anything custom, say you get new cabinets, a custom car or something, this is a personal engagement that you're dealing with one person on. It's not like a big factory where you go pick up a new iPhone. So they took this embryo, and it took about 6 months to 8 months for them to do this, and they inserted it in a surrogate. Now, the first time I did this, the surrogate had a miscarriage. So at this time, they had embryos that they already created, but they had to have a surrogate get to the same step again of the IVF drugs. So then they took another embryo, inserted it into a surrogate, and I had to wait again. Finally, that one took, and now is a waiting game. Dogs' gestation period is about 3 months for the dog to come to terms. After Petabyte was born, I had to pay the remaining balance, but I couldn't just get my Petabyte at that time. I had to pay the remaining balance, and then I had to wait for 3 months for him to grow up to a state that they could ship him on a plane to come to America. They would keep me updated with pictures and tell me how everything goes, and I was getting really excited at that time because he was looking really just like my old Petabyte. So after I paid the remaining balance, and then he got his shots and he was ready to come here, they booked a flight for him, and they dealt with all the travel arrangements of how he's actually going to get here and all the details about how he'd come in. And they actually sent him to Canada. So they sent him to Canada, and he had a little bit of a cold. So the Canadian authorities kept him for a little bit, for a few days, until they released him. At that time, he had a handler that was sending me some videos of him and making sure that he was eating and keeping in good spirits and that he looked okay. And then the handler drove him from up in Canada down to my house here. And it was a great, exciting day, and he looked just like him when he showed up. It was just a very, very small one. Because remember, I had him when he was 2. I didn't have him when he was a full-grown dog. So the big question about cloning when you clone a dog, how's its personality? How does it compare? Well, I spent about 12 to 16 hours a day with this guy over 12 years. And the thing I can tell you is he's pretty much exactly like the old dog was. Now, if you've ever been around dogs and know the breed of boxer, most little boxers are crazy. But this guy's pretty damn calm. I mean, just look at him sitting here. One of the things that the old Petabyte always did is he never really liked to fetch. He liked to play chase. So every time he got a hold of a toy, I had to chase him. And so from the get-go, I taught this guy how to play fetch, or he learned it on his own, really. And that's what he does. Some of the other things he did, he would just learn the other day. For instance, old Petabyte, what he would do for when it was dinner time is I would go put his food outside, and then he would come and beg my wife for food because she's a sucker. So he just sat there with his little dreamy eyes and wait for my wife to give in to give her all her food. After she was done giving her all her food, then he would go outside and finish his dinner. So this one was always just going outside, eating his food, and by the time he got back, we were usually done. But in the past few days, now he goes outside, he's looked at his food, comes back in, waits till Olga's done eating while begging for as much as he can get, and then goes and finishes his food. I'm sure he'll lose a step to going outside first in a few days. So now I know all of you are going to say, what are the ethics of dog cloning? I know if you search online, it says don't do it, it's a cruelty to animals. But we do it in America. It's a company in Texas that even does it. It's not illegal. And the main part that's hard for the dog is you are causing a dog to have a pregnancy for 3 months to have your desired dog be born. Is that cruel? It's a little beyond the scope of this. I personally don't think so, and I'd be willing to do it again to get another Petabyte when the time comes. Are there commercial uses? I can think of a lot, and I'm surprised they haven't happened already. One thing is, all the dog movies that you come and all the dog TV shows such as Lassie, Beethoven, they could keep the sequels going forever. Or you could go visit them in other places. Or you could win one. Who wouldn't want to own a Lassie? Another commercial use, of course, is horses. You win a prize-winning horse that's the best triple stake winner, well, you can have more of them. Lastly, another good commercial use of this guy or this technology would be search and rescue missions, bomb sniffing dogs. They have a lot of genetic traits, and I've just found that overall this is the exact same dog really as my previous dogs, minus a few memories. So overall, in conclusion, the main drawback to the cloning process is the price. Overall, I paid about $40,000 to have this dog recreated. Now, my logic is I'm paying about $250 a month to have my best friend the way I want him. Over the course of 14 years or so, to me, that's not that big of a price to pay to always have the same type of personality around me. I'm always gonna have some dog, and I might as well have one that I really like. Some of the drawbacks to this are, this is not a mass-produced product. So you're basically emailing a guy, waiting for monthly updates, hoping something happened, and you're gonna be discouraged because it's gonna take you a year and a little over a few months to get any kind of result back from it. And quite honestly, my friends all thought I was getting scammed. But doing my research and talking to the guy and looking up the business qualifications and seeing that they're a real company put me at ease. And when they started sending me pictures and I saw exactly how he looked the exact same, that really made me know that this dog was gonna come to me very shortly. So you can do this in America. It just costs more. And from what I've talked to them before, they were kind of backed up on doing it because it is a labor-intensive process to create those embryos. So I went overseas, and because of the price savings, I'd probably do the same thing again. So overall, this product is lovely, intelligent, charismatic, and would I do this again? Certainly. I give this product a 9 out of 10. While pricey, it lives up to what they claim to do. Cloning Pretabyte was one of the best decisions I made last year, and I couldn't be happier with them.